Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
We're back in better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pinto Performance Line. And this morning I did something I haven't done in a long time. When Golic and I first saw each other this morning in the makeup room over there, I said, don't say a word. I don't want to know your thoughts on the hit that knocked out Joe Flacco last night, figuratively and almost literally, until we are on the air. So I'm going to get it right now, along with everybody else for the first time. Golic, here is the question of the morning. Was that or was that not a dirty play by Kiko Alonso?
No, it wasn't a dirty play. It was a bang-bang play. It was a late play. He's going to get fined for it, no doubt about it. We'll have to wait
Suspended?
and see if he gets suspended. That I don't know. Listen, where we are in the NFL, I'll get into that. I think where we are in the NFL, if they want this type of thing, though we sit there and say to stop. And I know we're going to get into it more. I go back to the Aaron Rodgers. Could that have been avoided? Go to the Carson Palmer. Could the Carson Palmer have been avoided? I know you talked about it. I get what you're saying. Do we need to protect quarterbacks more? But how? This was a play, if you watch the play, and what everybody's going to do is run it in slow motion, freeze frame it. You can't do that. Because now they'll do that to decide what the penalty and such afterward. But during the game, man, it's bang, bang. You got to understand it was a first down. And while we all see the yellow line, the players don't see the yellow line. The players know where the first down mark is. They know where they have to go. Mm-hmm. And Joe Flacco knew he had to get to the 10-yard line for the first down. So I could easily see what was happening. Joe's running. Joe sees Kiko Alonso. Joe is gauging, can I make it to the first down or not? And Kiko's knows where the first down is and is like, I want to stop him from getting a first down. So they were going to meet. It was just how they were going to meet. Joe Flacco, at the last second, I think, I don't know for sure, and maybe at some point he'll say, at the last second he thought, I'm not going to make it. So he tried to get down, or he thought he was right there by making it. He would have been short because when you slide feet first, it goes back a little bit. But in watching it, I thought he didn't think at the last second he was going to make it, so he tried to get down. So he started to slide a little late than you normally would slide. Kiko Alonso was already taking off to hit him, and what happened. So do I think it was a dirty play? No. There's a line there of how much do you give a quarterback. If he's into his feet first slide, you can't hit him. And you even heard C.J. Mosley from the Ravens, the other team, say in those situations, what you do when you know the quarterback's going to slide, you take off for his head, knowing full well if he slides, you'll just go right over the top of him. And this was a late slide, in my opinion, by Flacco. Because of the first down marker, he tried to get it, thought he wasn't going to get it. At the last second, started to go down, and Alonso was already taken off. Now, the penalty was right. You can't do it. At the end of the day, the defender ends up being responsible. You know my thought on some of that. But where we are in the game today, he'll be fined. We'll see if he gets suspended. But I'm not going to sit here and say that was a dirty play, that no matter what, that he was taking off, that he knew he was quarterback was going to slide, and he's saying, I'm going to get a headshot on this guy. No way I would say that.
It was a penalty. Were you surprised he wasn't thrown out of the game?
No. Because I really think if you're a referee in that, you have to decide. Now, throwing someone out of the game, you have to decide. Now, did the referee think about all the things that I just thought about? Now, I thought about all that in real time. Mm-hmm. So maybe the ref did as well. There's the first down. Everybody knows where the first down is. He's trying to get the first down. Did he slide late? Now, the ref sees the quarterback get hit in the head. He's going to throw the flag. Right away, you're going to throw the flag. So, to me, I didn't think it was ejectable. I didn't think it was one of those. Remember, it's got to be egregious, like going, oh, my God, I can't believe he did that. If you watch that play as a football play, it was very close to just what I keep saying, and I'll keep saying it all morning. So, no, I don't think it was a dirty play. In today's game, you're going to get penalized, and you may get suspended. And we go from there.
Well, it was the perfect storm because it looks, as you watch it in slow motion, like he kind of loads up for his head, right? He hits him directly in the side of the head. The helmet goes flying off, so it's a terrible look. And Flacco comes up looking like he doesn't know what day of the week it is.
No doubt about it.
And he's got the blood coming out of his ear and everything else. Let me read you the rule. The rule is as follows. Defenders are required to treat a sliding runner as they would a runner who is down by contact.
Right.
A defender must pull up when a runner begins a feet-first slide.
Right.
This does not mean that all contact by a defender is illegal. If a defender has already committed himself and the contact is unavoidable, it is not a foul unless the defender makes forcible contact into the head or neck area of the runner with the helmet, shoulder, or forearm, or commit some other act that is unnecessary roughness. Well, he clearly did that.
That's it right there. I do think that part that you read, that the defender was already committed, but he got him in the head. So he was already committed, so it wasn't the egregious you're tossed out of the game thing, but it was a penalty in today's game. That's what I think.
How is Flacco? That's obviously the first question that you have coming out. Oh, by the way, the game was 40-0. But there were two incidents in it that people were talking a lot about if you didn't watch it last night, and this was overwhelmingly the first one. So here's Coach John Harbaugh on how Flacco is doing.
Joe had a concussion. And a cut ear. His ear was cut from like in here all the way down to his earlobes. They were stitching that up without any anesthesia, so he was a tough dude at halftime, and that's as much as I know about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's going to be in that concussion protocol. Didn't even come out of the locker room after halftime, so we'll see where that goes. He looked completely dazed and confused, which isn't shocking. He took a shot right to the head, so that will be the question. It's a guy that's only missed 6 games, I think, in his career. It was an ACL, MCL years ago that he had. Other than that, he hasn't missed any time. He's been very, very durable, no doubt about that. So we'll see if this one costs him any time or not.
And then, as far as the hit is concerned, John Harbaugh didn't have a lot to say about that.
Are you okay? That wasn't a clean hit, was it?
I'm not commenting on that. Yeah, it was. I was penalized correctly, I would say.
You feel like the ejection was?
It's not for me to say. But thanks for asking. Absolutely, no question. It's a fair question. Put it that way.
Sorry, John. He wasn't going down that road, but you saw on the field he wanted to get to Kiko Alonso. I mean, they were John. Everything that happened after that play is almost textbook what goes on. I think it's Kylie Jensen. Ryan Jensen. Ryan Jensen, the center. He did exactly what you should do. He tried to drop Kiko Alonso. He hit him, and then he was on the ground. He tried to bury him. And then you do as a defender what you should do when you see a guy like that hit one of your defenders, and Ndamukong Suh and others came over, and they hit Jensen and knocked him down. I mean, everything happened how it was going to happen there. And there's, unfortunately, Joe Flacco sitting there with no helmet on, looking like he doesn't know where he is, and that's the worst part of this whole thing. In what was an ugly game offensively. We knew these were two bad offenses. It was an ugly game. Matt Moore throws 2 pick sixes. It wasn't even a competitive game, but this is going to obviously be the headline and certainly going forward for a team for the Baltimore Ravens at the availability of their quarterback.
Yeah, when you have the Thursday night standalone game and the quarterback's helmet goes flying off and he's obviously looking like he doesn't know what's going on. That's obviously that's just a terrible look.
And they have
for
extra
the
time
NFL.
now. I mean, you do have the 10 days now, so we don't know the severity, we don't know the degree, we don't know any of that right now. He looked pretty dazed, but we don't know. So let's wait and hear, and let's see the time frame to recover.
Going back, you're right. I can't sit here and say that it's a dirty play.
Yeah.
And the single biggest defense, if you want to make one, of Kiko Alonso is exactly what you said. Flacco slides so late. There is actually even something in the rule. I just read you part of the rule. I didn't read all of it. There is something in the rule about how if the runner wants to take advantage of that protection, he has to slide early enough to give it. Here it is. A runner who wishes to take advantage of this protection is responsible for starting his slide before contact by a player is imminent. If he does not and waits until the last moment to begin his slide, he puts himself in jeopardy of being contacted. So if Alonso hits him, I believe Alonso is justified in hitting him. Mm-hmm. But just the way it looks, the forearm to the head, it looks intentional. Now, that doesn't mean that it is intentional because, I get it. These guys are flying. They're running
flying,
as fast as they can.
When you slide, where are you going to hit? I mean, that's the part of the body that's kind of off the ground. The chest, neck, head area, that's the part that's going to get hit.
Right.
And most times when you see this penalty, that's exactly where the quarterback sliding gets hit because the rest of his body's sliding on the ground. So normally it's his head that gets hit. So
it's just a bad-looking play, unfortunately. And Flacco goes out, and it is part of a – so to conclude, you believe the penalty was appropriate.
Penalty was
certainly.
appropriate.
A fine?
I would not have thrown him out of the game for that
fine
at all. Oh, he's going to be fine.
I'm making you – no, but you're the person.
Yeah.
You're the arbiter of this. You're in the office.
Yeah.
You're Troy Vincent. It isn't Troy Vincent, but whoever it is that hears these things.
He's going to be fined. As far as a suspension, I would not suspend him. But what I'm going to say is we're talking about more and more protection. You asked it. How do you protect the quarterback even more? Mm-hmm. I don't think you can change any more rules because you can barely do anything to them now. So what you have to change, if you really want to do this, is the punishment for breaking those rules. So not only a fine, Kiko Alonso can afford fine, but if you take him off the field, that really can cost you and your team. So I wouldn't, but then again, I'm a little hard-headed that way. But understanding where the game is now and that they can't do much more to protect the quarterback on the field, maybe this would be a way to say, in all honesty, the guys at the office, because the guys deciding this at the office are former players. Remember that. They're former players. And I think if they suspend them, they're going to suspend Kiko Alonso and not feel good about it. That's my opinion. They're old. They're players who played a little bit in the past, and they're going to suspend him and go, you know what? Don't think he should be suspended, but in today's game with the message that the league wants to send to the protection of the players, that we're going to suspend him here. That's my guess. That's if he gets suspended.
Well, I'll read you some of the Twitter reaction yesterday from a variety of different people. Dominique Foxworth, our colleague, tweeted, if you think Kiko should have been ejected, you're reacting to the result. Yeah. The action warrants a flag, and that could be debated. Hashtag TNF. So he was strongly on that side. Ross Tucker tweeted, how is he not kicked out? If that's only a 15-yard penalty, then what is there to disincentivize players from knocking quarterbacks out like that?
Well, listen, as I just answered, if he's in a full slide and then Kiko hits him in the head, so be it. You know, listen, I follow Ross Tucker. I like the stuff Ross Tucker does. But, you know, he slid late. He slid late, and Kiko was taken off. You read the rule. It's almost textbook what the rule book says. He slid late, so he kind of gave up his right, but Kiko still hit him in the head, which deserves a flag, but not an ejection.
And I you know what? I was listening to Mikey this morning, and he quoted someone, I forget who now, and I can't find it, and I apologize, I can't remember it, as saying, when I played, they called that football.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who he said that. But that, Mikey obviously had seen that on Twitter somewhere.
Sure. But the rule changed.
And so it's changed. But
yes.
The point is, the rule changed on what is legal and not legal, but it has not changed on what's dirty and not dirty.
Right.
So clearly, if it was football once, it isn't dirty now. It doesn't go from football to dirty. It goes from football to against the rules.
Against the rules. That's exactly right.
So I think that's going to be the official position here, and I'm not surprised. It was appropriate to be called a penalty. It will be fined because that's the world we live in now. If Kiko Alonso is suspended, you will disagree with it. Is that the official position?
I would not want the suspension, but I'll say in today's game with how they're trying to protect the quarterback, it wouldn't surprise me that if they threw a suspension in there to really try. Because what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do with the fine and the suspension?
Stop it from happening.
It's exactly right.
Keep quarterbacks healthy, ultimately.
Fine. Listen, no, Kiko Alonso, and I don't know where he is in the giving up money phase of his career. I don't know if he's got fined before because a lot of it's based on that, how much he's going to lose, how much can they up it? Is this a $12,000? Is this a $48,000? I don't know. It's no fun losing money. It's even worse than losing games where then you can lose money as well. So if the league feels, hey, we need to overstep this so guys really think about this on the field, then we need to take it this far. I would not agree with a suspension, but it wouldn't shock me if there is one.
All right, so that certainly was the top story coming out of the sports world last night. Let's go off the top. Oh, by the way, as I mentioned, the game was 40-0. The Ravens beat the Dolphins by a 40-0 score, their largest shutout win in franchise history. Mike, this was a pretty terrible game.
Yeah, it was an awful game, without question. This was the thing everybody's going to talk about because there's no game to talk about. As I said, these were two horrible, horrible offenses, and it showed. with the Miami Dolphins under 200 yards of total offense and the Baltimore Ravens under 300 yards of total offense. It was ugly. 2 pick sixes. So the offense, 40-0, 12 of those points coming on defensive touchdowns. There's not a whole lot to say about this game. And we've been getting good Thursday night games. For all the complaining people I've done, I've not been one of them, by the way, that said, oh, my God, Thursday night games, how could we have them? They're so unsafe. They've been horrible games. They've been good games this year so far.
Yeah.
This was an ugly one. But going into it, you knew they were the 2 worst offenses, but, you didn't see 40. I don't know if you saw 40-0 coming here.
And unfortunately, what it also did was it ended my dreams of being a talent evaluator. with all of my talk about Matt Moore and how great he is and how he's going to take over that job and he's going to take it away from Cutler, and he looked so good last week. How bad must the Jet defense be if he went through them like they were Swiss cheese, and last night he put up a goose egg against the Ravens?
He completed 25 of 44 passes for 176 yards, 2 pick sixes. It was not pretty, and I wonder at some point, maybe at the end of that game, if Adam Gase walked over to Jay Cutler and said, how you feeling?
How the ribs?
How the ribs? What do we think?
Yeah. McShay's job is safe. Greeny was not exactly on the money with that assessment. All right, DeMarcus Cousins, welcome back to Sacramento. He went back to where he played for so many years for the Kings as a Pelican, and he took over the game.
You kidding me? Became the first player in NBA history with 40 points, 20 rebounds, and 5 assists in a game against a former team. He scored 41, 23, and 6. The first player with 40 points, 20 rebounds, and 5 assists in a game since Chris Webber did it in 2000, 2001. And by the way, Webber called the game last night on TNT. First player in the last 35 seasons to go 40 points, 20 rebounds, 5 assists in a road game. And the last 3 players, how about this, taking the assists out of it, the last 3 players with 40 points and 20 rebounds, all of them went to Kentucky.
So Anthony Davis is one of them?
Cousins and a guy we love now, a young player, great Minnesota, Karl Anthony Towns. Yeah. How about that?
40 points
20
and 20
rebounds. Yeah, pretty impressive.
Remarkable night, for DeMarcus Cousins going back home. Game 3 of the World Series tonight. You'll hear every pitch on ESPN Radio. Astros and Dodgers even at a game apiece.
So is 7 the lucky number? Whether consecutive or not, every team to win 7 home games in a single postseason also went on to win the World Series. Houston has won 6 home games in a row. This would be 7 tonight. That would be the going on to do it. As I said, have gone on to win the World Series when you've done this. So we'll see if they can do that one tonight. And how about the home run wise? After setting a single season, regular season record in 2017, this postseason is on to possibly setting a playoff record. There have been 90 home runs during this postseason, fourth most in a single playoff. They got to get to 100. 2004, 10 more with the games that are left. I've got to believe they can do that. Well, when you hit 8 in a game, that certainly can get you there.
Right.
Off the top.
It probably will. And then our final story, Joe Girardi will not return as manager of the Yankees this coming season after the most successful tenure of his time. He won more games during his 10 years as manager of the Yankees than anyone else won. No team won more games during that stretch, but the Yankees decided it was time for a change.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into this one. Joe Madden, the only manager with more regular season wins than Girardi since 2008. Regular season, 919 for Madden, 910 for Girardi. Girardi's the 6th all-time among Yankees manager in wins, but only won a single World Series title, something the 5 other managers ahead of him all did multiple times. And then get this one. There's a first out of all this offseason. It's the first time that 3 playoff teams changed managers in the same offseason. Yankees, Red Sox, Nationals. All changed managers.
Yeah, and so there's not a whole lot of job stability in that sport, and that is what everyone's talking about. It's Off the Top. It's presented by Progressive Insurance. Now you can test drive Snapshot even if you have insurance with another company. See how much you can save before you switch. I wanted to play you Teixeira on Girardi because, Joe is someone that we know and that we like, and I was sorry to see this happen yesterday. Buster, when he came on with us recently, suggested that he thought it would be Girardi's decision not to come back. Mm-hmm. At least the way it was positioned in their statements yesterday, it was made clear the Yankees didn't want him back. And Joe made it sound like he desperately wanted to be back. Yeah. Now, that's easy to say after they've told you they don't want you back. Maybe he didn't really want to come back as badly as he made it sound like. One way or another, Mark Teixeira, who played for Girardi for years and now, of course, does terrific work as an analyst for us at ESPN, had these thoughts on Girardi.
I think managers today are really more, they need to be a reflection of the front office and not necessarily be their own guy. And I think with Joe Girardi, this is not a surprise because you look at, Joe's an intense guy.
Yep.
He's a little tight.
Yep.
And I think sometimes when you have a young, talented team like the Yankees are going to have now for a long time, you want to see a manager that's maybe a little bit looser, can maybe communicate a little bit better with his players. And what made Joe great, Joe's a really good manager. He's a good man, but he's also so intense that sometimes that rubs the front office the wrong way and it rubs the players the wrong way.
So I think a lot of it is a feel of where we are. So Joe Girardi can manage again. Now, will he go to a team maybe that's an older team? This is a younger team, just what Teixeira said. And Teixeira's going to know a whole lot about, that dugout, no doubt about it. Do managers in baseball now need to be in lockstep with management and the numbers thing? Like a Dave Roberts or an A.J. Hinch, if you say they're in lockstep there with those numbers type of game plan.
And Girardi is that kind of guy.
Yeah.
Girardi is a numbers guy for sure.
But as Tech said, a little intense, and you got a really young, talented roster here, so maybe the fit just isn't right. And 10 years, we've had, what was it, Marty Schottenheimer, one of the
Chuck
coaches.
Daly was the first one I remember saying.
And then we heard it as well from Marty Schottenheimer, said 10 years, it just, maybe it's just time for a change. And I think the perfect storm here of the analytics, the intenseness of Girardi, the young age of this team, then maybe it was time to make a move.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are, Mike and Mike, rolling along, presented by Progressive Insurance. Michael Kay will join us in a couple of minutes on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line with perspective on the Yankees moving on from Joe Girardi. He knows Girardi really well. He not only does he host afternoons on ESPN Radio in New York, but he does the Yankee games on Yes, and he did them with Joe Girardi for a while before Girardi got the managerial job with the Yankees. So we'll get perspective from him on all of that. But if you heard in the open, you heard Golic's take on the big hit of last night. The game last night was awful. 40-0 Ravens. But the big hit by Kiko Alonso on Joe Flacco as Flacco was sliding. It's clearly a late slide, and Alonso hits him directly in the side of the head. The helmet goes flying off. It's a concussion. It's a cut ear. So it's a terrible-looking play. Golic does not believe it was a dirty play. It was a 15-yard penalty. It was not. Alonso was not thrown out of the game. Here was Kiko Alonso afterwards.
It was bang, bang. He got to a point where I thought maybe if he slid a second sooner, I was anticipating him sliding, I was going to not hit him. But I think it was like, a second late, which is why I hit him.
Is there anything that you would have done to avoid that contact or not put your shoulder into it?
No. No way. What the target, that's the target. When a guy slides, the target is very small. Like I said, it's a bang, bang play. I hope he's all right. Cheerleader.
He said it right there, too. Everybody, people say, why you have to hit him in the head? Well, when you slide, the target is very small. What is there to hit that's not sliding? And it was a late slide, so you have an aiming point, and then you're hitting what's available, what's up as you're sliding, and it was a shoulder to the head. It wasn't a head-to-head. It was a shoulder to the head. And, you do hope Flacco is okay, but everybody's going to watch this play at slow motion or frame by frame, which is fine, and if you want to do it that way, but you have to understand the players out there playing, it's at full speed, and what's going on in the mind of, as he said, I anticipated him sliding. He didn't. And you're talking, again, the split. You're talking about what goes in your mind in a split second?
Sure.
So that's what he's thinking.
Yeah.
Flacco, I know, is thinking, can he get to the first down marker, and then realizes he can't too late and starts to slide late. Kiko said, I was ready to pull off because I thought he was going to slide, and he didn't. That 1 second at that speed, that's the result.
Yeah, you have completely convinced me. And actually, everything he said there I thought sounded completely legit. The slide comes so late. We heard C.J. Mosley earlier this morning, Flacco's teammate, say, when a quarterback slides, you aim for the head. Well, that's what Alonso said. But in this case, he slid so late that when aiming for the head, he hit him in the head.
Yep, still got him.
Normally, the guy will slide under you, and you kind of go right over the top of him. But in this case, Flacco's slide was so late. Let me play Darren Woodson, and then we'll get to Michael Kay. Here's our own Darren Woodson last night. And as you would expect from a defensive player, he did not think it was dirty either.
I thought it was a bang-bang play, much like Kiko Alonso did. It felt like Joe Flacco was trying to get the first down, and he was doing his job. Kiko Alonso was doing his job to stop the first down. And we see Joe Flacco's trying to get there. Now, I haven't seen Joe Flacco move that fast in a long time. He slides at the first down marker. Kiko Alonso tries to stop him at the same time, and it's a bang-bang play. Listen, I think the problem here is this. Kiko Alonso came through and aim for up high and hit him in the head with his shoulder. And I think that's going to be the problem when the NFL takes a look at this. They're going to send him a fine. He's getting a FedEx in the mail. He'll get fined for this hit. But at the same time, I still feel like there was no malice involved. There was no intent to do any harm to Joe Flacco. But Kiko Alonso is going to take it on the chin, and the NFL is going to make him pay dearly for this.
Agree 100%. And for those that say it was a dirty hit and it could have been avoided, I want you to explain to me how. Don't look at slow motion or frame to frame. Watch that replay in regular motion, and you tell me with the late slide how Kiko Alonso could have held up. Or could have pulled off of that one. It's just tough to do when you made that commitment to go.
More football to come on this Friday with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is celebrating 5 years and more than 500 cars donated to vets. To learn more, visit keys-to-progress.com. But, of course, the World Series continues tonight, the world of baseball, with a lot of news. We mentioned it earlier. 3 of the final 8 teams standing in this year's baseball postseason made managerial changes during the offseason. The Nationals making a move, the Red Sox making a move, and yesterday the New York Yankees making a move away from their longtime manager, Joe Girardi. And here with thoughts on that, as I mentioned, Michael Kay, who not only hosts afternoons on ESPN Radio New York, but does the Yankee games on Yes and worked with Girardi and the broadcast booth before Joe took over the managerial job, so knows him extremely well. With that as the backdrop, we say good morning, Michael Kay.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Well, we're fine, and we know there's nothing in the world you love more than waking up really early like this to talk with us. So I know you're obviously delighted.
Well, you know what? When I wake up before my 2- and 4-year-olds, I'm doing something.
Boy, what a commitment!
All right, so were you surprised? I mean, Buster had given us a heads up about 2 weeks ago on the air here that he expected this to happen. Were you at all surprised that this happened yesterday?
I'm not surprised that he's not the manager of the New York Yankees anymore. I'm surprised that the Yankees said, we don't want you to be the manager anymore. In spring training, I told a lot of people I thought that this was going to be it for Joe, that he was pretty much fried, but I thought that he was re-energized during the season when he saw the pipeline of players and the players that he had now and how bright the future was. And although, you had heard rumblings that there was some discord between Joe and the front office, you figured that 91 wins and going to the 7th game of the ALCS probably would have smoothed that over. So when I heard that the Yankees said goodbye, that was surprising.
Why do you think they did it?
Well, from what I've been able to piece together, he gave some pushback at times with the overwhelming analytics that the Yankees endorse. I mean, this is a heavily analytic team. Everything is driven by the numbers. It's all black and white. There's very little room for a manager to manage by the gut. And also, our friend Ian O'Connor had a perfect line that kind of sums up. Joe Girardi is a clenched fist, and that's how he goes about his job. And I think that the front office was somewhat concerned was that constant driving, tension, needing to win every single game. He's probably more suited to be a football coach than a baseball coach. Over 162 games, over 6 months, the Yankee front office, I believe, felt that wore on the players because players feed off their leader's demeanor. And Joe's demeanor is that of a very, very intense guy.
I get that part of it, Michael, but the one thing I did find interesting was after that Friday night in Cleveland where they had that really bad loss and Girardi made some mistakes and we saw all the criticism and everything else, it felt to me, and you're much closer to it than I am, but just watching it, it felt to me like the players on that team really wanted to have his back. Like there was a real genuineness in their wanting not only to win, obviously, because they wanted to win, but to get Joe off the hook, which they did by coming all the way back to winning that series. And that spoke to me about the way those players felt about him. Do I have that right or wrong?
I believe, and I believed at the time, that that's a totally false narrative. And Golic could probably speak more to this than I can, but players are playing to win for themselves. I mean, there's very little win one for the Gipper anymore. And although Joe was respected in that room, he wasn't loved. That's the difference between Joe Girardi and Joe Torre. Joe Girardi respected. Everybody sees how hard he works. Torre, the same deal, but Torre's players loved him. Very little love. I don't think there was hate, but there was very little love between the players and Joe. Joe's not a warm and cuddly guy, so I don't think that they got together and said, let's win one for Joe. Let's get him off the hook because he didn't challenge Lonnie Chisenhall getting hit by that pitch. I just don't buy it. I just don't think that's how players think.
Completely agree with you. It is very few and far between in today's sporting world where the players are saying, let's win one for the Gipper. They're out there trying to win, and if it helps the manager or coach along the way, then so be it. I completely agree with that. So what type of manager do you think the Yankees will be looking for, and who do you think that may be?
Well, being around this team, for 31 years now, what they've always done is when a manager goes, they hire the opposite. So when Buck Showalter left, a hard-driving guy, then it was Joe Torre, not as hard-driving. And after Joe Torre left, then they went to Girardi. So I think that it would be more of a, I wouldn't say a warm and fuzzy guy, but certainly a guy who's not as intense as Joe Girardi. And the Yankees have really circled the wagons. They have not really leaked that much at all. The names that you're hearing, maybe a Raul Ibanez, in their minor league system, a Josh Paul, from their major league coaching staff, Rob Thompson, who's been with the organization over a quarter of a century. Kevin Long might be somebody that'd be interested in. A front office guy like Tim Naring, who's 50 years old but has never managed anywhere. The guy that will be chosen is a guy who has a relationship with Brian Cashman. That's important. Managerial experience, I don't think it's that important because I think that could be taught. But the willingness to dive head first into the analytics situation and manage that way and have a good relationship with the players, that's the type of guy I think they look for.
Mike and Michael Kay, and obviously a lot of Yankee fans looking at a lot of different puzzle pieces that are moving around through the sport with the Yankee legend Derek Jeter taking over in Miami and some questions about what will happen there. They'll look at another Yankee legend in Don Mattingly, who might become someone who's available, who was passed over for this last time when they decided to hire Girardi. Is there any conceivable chance you could see that happening?
No. I've been asked that so much, and I think that's the dream of Yankee fans. And, Don Mattingly is one of my favorite people that I've ever covered in my career. But if they passed him over 10 years ago when George Steinbrenner was alive and when everybody that made those decisions knew that there were two players in the history of the Yankees since George Steinbrenner brought them that he actually looked at his sons, Derek Jeter and Don Mattingly. If he didn't get the job then, not that much has changed now. And the guy who made the decision then is the same guy who's making the decision now, and that's Brian Cashman. I just don't think that Brian looks at Donnie that way because – there were three guys that interviewed for the job after Joe Torre. It was Girardi, Pena, and Mattingly came in third. So I don't see that happening.
Michael, the future of Joe Girardi, what do you think he does?
Well, if he had walked away, I thought he'd go like a couple of years and not manage. His son Dante is an extraordinary athlete. He's going to begin high school, and I thought that Joe would see some of that through. But I think Joe's a little bit shaken up. He did not expect this to happen. He really wanted to stay manager of the Yankees. So, I don't know how a Washington Nationals team doesn't take a look at him. I think he'll manage as soon as he can. But time has gone by, and some of the positions have dried up. So if the few that are left don't consider him, obviously there's always a position for him in broadcasting. He's a great broadcaster, but I think he's going to manage again. And I think he's got respect around the baseball. And maybe, some of the things he's hearing now about why he was let go, maybe he improves on those things, but I'm not sure you can unclench a fist.
It's Michael Kay. Again, you'll hear him this afternoon and every afternoon on ESPN Radio New York. Michael, thanks a million for doing this. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
You got it, guys. Have a good weekend.
Michael Kay with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic, motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today.
You heard him mention Ian O'Connor. Ian O'Connor had a series of tweets yesterday. And it's and very close, obviously, ESPN.com, ESPNNewYork.com author as well. These are some tweets in succession from Ian O'Connor. The Yankees have long been frustrated with Joe Girardi's failure to apply a more human touch to the job. Hurt him a lot. Next tweet. Joe Girardi's relationship with his players, though not entirely broken, was not what his bosses hoped it would be. Another tweet. Well-connected Yankees source said in playoffs that notion the players won one for Joe versus Cleveland wasn't based in fact. Another tweet, Yankees execs persuaded Girardi to humanize himself in 2009, disappointed he never took additional steps from there. So those are some of the tweets from Ian
Humanize
O'Connor.
himself is a fascinating choice of words.
I get what they're saying.
So do I. Of course. He is an intense person. The book on him is he manages every game like it's Game 7 of the World Series. And, of course, you can't do that in May and June and all the rest of that. I will just say this. Two things. One, you and I have both seen Girardi outside of that milieu. He is an emotional guy.
Yes, he is.
We did the reason that we first met him was that we hosted a March of Dimes luncheon in Manhattan. This is years and years ago. I remember they honored several celebrities, including Venus Williams and Joe Girardi. And Girardi got up there and he spoke and he teared up and he was thanking his wife and he started crying, remember? And I thought to myself, this is not the image that people have of Joe Girardi. And so the human side of it, I get it. He's an intense person. That's the way, that's his managerial style. Lots of guys are that way, and they've had a lot of success doing that. I've always said, look at a team, look at the players, and then say, did they win more games than, fewer games than, or about the same games as you would expect them to? And I think they overachieved. I think for that team this year to win as many games as they did and go as deep as they did into the playoffs, they were one game away from going to the World Series. I think he did a great. I mean, I think that he just did a great job as the manager. I think taking everything else out of it, he did a great job managing.
I agree.
He
had a winning season every year. Now people are going to say, well, they have the money to spend to have a good season. We both like him. Bottom line is we both like him as a person, and we both think he's a good manager. But from the Yankee side of it, management side of it, I agree with you. I think they were early this year, so they overachieved a bit this year. But, that's what you have to do if you're management. You have to look ahead and you say, okay, we got these young guys. We really like bringing them along, and we want a different personality to bring them along. So I think that's basically where it is, don't you? I mean, I think that's exactly it is. Yeah. So I think that's the type of manager you're going to get.
I think he also may not. He's a person who's doing his job. I don't know that he managed up as well as they may have liked.
Right.
Also, so there you have that. Girardi out as manager of the Yankees. We'll see where they go. Again, it's a sport where 3 of the last 8 teams standing made managerial changes. The last 8 teams with a chance to win the World Series included the Red Sox, the Nationals, and the Yankees. They will all have new managers next year. I want to read you a tweet. We're Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and as I clicked on my inbox here, my timeline, or the mentions.
There you go.
Jeff tweeted at us 10 minutes ago. Let's be honest. If Tom Brady is on the receiving end of that hit last night, it's treated like a national tragedy by everyone. Now, I know it wouldn't be by you.
No.
I know. Let me stop you. I know you wouldn't say anything different. No. But do you think the reaction this morning would be different if that was a different quarterback?
Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. We heard it with Aaron Rodgers and what was a clean hit. Everybody still lost their mind trying to find a way to say it was a dirty hit. So, yeah, I think no doubt about it. I mean, just pick a quarterback. Cam Newton, how many shots does Cam Newton
they don't even throw a flag.
They don't even throw flags on him. So that's happened to Ben Roethlisberger as well. Flacco certainly not known to be a running quarterback at all, and he was humping there trying to get to the first down. So, yeah, I do think from a national perspective, it would make a difference of what quarterback it was. But from mine, it certainly doesn't, and from a football player's, it shouldn't. Do you think if Kiko Alonso is in that same position running up and it's Tom Brady, that he's going to think in his head? I said a lot of things go through your mind. You know what's not going through his mind? Well, this is Tom Brady. I better not hit him or I'm going to lose a lot of money. You're still out there trying to make a football play. He's trying to get the first down. We know what yard line the first down is. He's trying to get it. I'm going to try and stop him. He slid late. He took the hit that he took. Now, you're going to get fined now for it, but from the football side of it, you don't think about that out there. You after the play is called, you probably go, well, yeah, it's Tom Brady or it's Aaron Rodgers, probably why they threw the flag. Drew Brees, as opposed to, quarterback A, B, or C, who you don't know as well.
Exactly, but that doesn't change the fact that if we open the show this morning and Tom Brady is the one who got up with his helmet knocked off and blood coming out of his ear and looking like he doesn't know what stadium he's in, what city he's in, what day it is, that would lead, Good Morning America and all those shows, they'd be talking about it. And that just is what it is.
Yes, it is.
It doesn't change the action.
Does not change the action at all.
And as Dominique said, if Flacco just bounces up and he's fine, if the helmet doesn't come off and Flacco bounces up and he's fine, it's a 15-yard penalty, and we open the show this morning with you saying that shouldn't even be a flag.
Yeah.
What in the world is he supposed to do? They can't make any more rules to protect these quarterbacks. You're right. So, the reaction, sometimes our reaction is predicated upon how something turns out.
Yeah.
It just looks bad when his helmet flies off and the look on his face.
It does. Yeah, it does. And when you can do it in slow motion and look at it that way, everybody go, oh, my God, throw that guy out of the game, suspend him. What a dirty play.
And by the way, I also, as a consequence of last night's game, have to announce the end of my bid here to try to replace Todd McShay or Mel Kiper as an analyst of these players and how good they are. Because I spent 3 days
anointing Matt Moore,
making Matt Moore like the next Tom Brady, and then he spent 60 minutes last night convincing me and everyone else that I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh my God, was that awful?
Listen, he was playing against a really good defense, no doubt about it. But 2 pick sixes, it just wasn't happening. Jay, we talked about it yesterday that Jay Cutler may be able to go next week. So I don't think there's any doubt that as soon as Jay Cutler's ready to go, even as bad as he's been playing, he's going to be the quarterback in the Miami Dolphins.
My God.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a ridiculously strange game. So taking all the joking around about it aside, Moore comes into the game last week. Mm-hmm. He takes over an offense that has looked all day long, has looked moribund, it has looked slow, it has looked lifeless. And he comes onto the field, and he just takes over.
Get a spark.
It was a total spark.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dolphin offense looked really good, and Stills is making great catches, and he's throwing the ball around different people, and they just looked like an entirely different team, and they come back and win. And then 4 days later, they look like the worst offense in the entire NFL.
A guy comes in, a spark comes in, you make a couple of plays, and everybody gets lifted a little bit, right? So you kind of run with that. And in this game, they never got to that point. It was almost like same old. Here we go again. So nobody got lifted. So you want to obviously put it on the players, put it on execution, give credit to the defense of the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of ways to go. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Are you hiring? Do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 job sites with just one click. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, listeners to this podcast can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/30 for 30.
All right, I'm posting this right now. This is a really, really interesting story that Seth Wickersham and Don Van Natta, who do a lot of our best investigative work here at ESPN, have written and has just gone up online. I just posted it. It's on ESPN.com. It's all over the place. And it is the story of behind the scenes what happened at those owners' meetings last week, Mike,
right,
in Lower Manhattan, where a variety of NFL players and the leadership of the Players Association were invited to talk about the issues of protests during the national anthem.
They're supposed to meet again this Tuesday.
Correct.
Right.
And the impact that it's having on the league. So there were a variety of stories that came out of that, and you were hearing kind of mixed things from different people. Here are some of the top-level bullet points, headlines coming out of that. So I'll read one, Mike, and then you just give me a quick thought, and we'll go through it. First, sponsors were described as rattled, including one that was threatening to pull out if there was a mandate for players to stand. They actually mentioned specifically some of the sponsors they're talking about, including Papa John's and USAA.
So everybody who's mad at the players for kneeling. They're saying here, if the league made a rule for them to stand, there would be sponsors that would leave them.
At least one. Again, sponsors were rattled, including one that was threatening to pull out if there was a mandate for players to stand. 11 owners were in the meeting with players. Headliners like Jerry Jones, Bob McNair, and Dan Snyder were not invited. Not headliners. Hardliners, which is a very important distinction.
Yes, it is.
I'm reading this off some small print here. Hardliners like Jerry Jones, Bob McNair, and Dan Snyder were not invited. Players told the owners there that the larger group of owners was being duplicitous, supporting them privately but not stepping out publicly. Demario Davis, linebacker of the Jets, apparently said, guys will stand up if you hear them, which sort of goes back to what Booger was saying here on the air. You want guys to stand up, listen to what we're asking for.
Yep.
Pay attention to what we want here, and then the guys will stand.
Let's be a part of at least a solution that we can have some say in.
The NFL's VP of Social Responsibility led a group that put together a proposal to respond to players' concerns. It was widely panned by the league's business executives, but supported full bore by Goodell. In the meeting, Goodell was impressive, leading in a way the players hadn't seen. He told owners they weren't hearing players' concerns and seemed compassionate to players in the face of pressure from hardline owners and business executives. The 11 owners reported back to the full ownership group that afternoon, but a full discussion wasn't held until the second day. Snyder and Jones were passionate about the business impact the protests were having. McNair said, quote, we can't have the inmates running the asylum, end quote. Former player and current NFL executive Troy Vincent was offended by the inmate remark and said as much. I would
agree with that. Yeah.
There was no vote on a mandate to stand, but an unofficial tally had only 9 owners in favor of a mandate. Some of this was seen as a rebuke to Jerry Jones for a variety of reasons, including putting them all in a corner with his hardline comments. Overall, just as the meeting with the players was constructive dialogue, the owners' meetings themselves were more contentious.
Well, what I'll say is, as far as I didn't think we were going to come out with a mandate or a new rule, because I think that would have poisoned what they were trying to accomplish. If all of a sudden you went in there and tried to have a conversation about players saying, listen, we'll stand if you hear us, let's work together on something, and then the league were to come out of that and say, we're making a rule, you have to stand, you're just aggravating the situation, in my opinion. So that wasn't going to be the answer to that. It was going to be, okay, if we can show some positive things that we can do in our cities, let's take care of what we can take care of. We can take care of things in the cities we do, and if players want to do it in other places, that's fine as well. But we have 32 NFL cities. If we want to work with league and players in those cities to do some things concretely, then that's a good thing to do. And hopefully there are plans to do that. I've read some of the proposed plans that hopefully they'll talk about again. We'll see. I mean, we'll see where that goes. You wanted it to leave. I didn't think anything was going to come out of that first meeting with pen to paper, whether it was we agree to give you X amount of help or money or whatever in each city where players work together, or there's a mandate you have to stand. That was an initial meeting, and I think you wanted to be an amicable meeting. And then the next one, the Tuesday, if they in fact have this meeting, I think you can get down to hopefully more brass tacks of, okay, now what physically concrete things can we do?
The best of Mike and Mike.
Very busy football Friday with plenty of baseball mixed in. Game 3 World Series tonight, of course. We'll talk to Craig Biggio, Astros legend, in this half hour from now, I should say. How about Brian Kelly an hour from now, waking up the echoes as Notre Dame is having a great season. Tim Tebow to come this morning as well. All our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and we are delighted to present our friend Joey Galloway in our studio right now. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Talking a lot about golf this morning here off the air.
Getting cold.
Temperatures.
It's about to end, isn't it?
You played at Ohio State. You must have played in snow and cold in the Big Ten.
You don't play golf in the snow.
Exactly, and I lived in Tampa after that, and that sort of opened my eyes to this cold stuff is not fun.
I will say this. Yes, I played golf yesterday. I was literally the only person on my golf course where I play yesterday, and I thought to myself, would people think, if they saw me out there, I'm wearing a winter hat, but whatever it is, it's cold, but I'm playing. Would people think, man, he just doesn't get it? Or would they think, man, he's the only one who gets it? Which do you think that's
No, I think you're an idiot. Yeah, but I think that anyway.
Yeah, and I went last week, and it was 40 when I teed off, and I thought, I'm an idiot. Like I thought,
what
I am an
fun
idiot.
about
so,
that?
There was I could not feel what I was doing physically. Like it was a waste of time.
I never would have thought that you two would be the soft ones on the set, and I'd be the one out there. But I'm telling you what, I'm playing this whole weekend regardless. Okay, we must go back to the conversation we were having a moment ago, because this is – I can see it. Sometimes you can see things percolating. I've had this story in my possession now for over a day. but it was not being released. It was embargoed until now. So the story by Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham, which just went online about a half hour ago, is starting to get an enormous amount of attention, and you're going to want to read it. We just went through sort of the bullet point headlines of it, and you're going to want to read it, but no question about it. The line by Bob McNair, the owner of the Texans, is the one that is getting an enormous amount of attention. You can just see that word is going to start trending. Let me give you a little bit of the context here. The day after all the players were in the meeting, now this is just the owners, and they're talking amongst themselves, and that was what was described as being much more contentious than when the players were there. Jerry Jones was speaking in great detail about why he feels they need to stop the kneeling, and to be clear, his was not an ideological position. It is purely a business position. He was making a strong business argument that this is bad for the business of the National Football League. However you may take that, that's what the details are. Dan Snyder mumbled out loud, "See, Jones gets it. 96% of Americans are for guys standing," a claim some dismissed as a grand overstatement. McNair, a multi-billion-dollar Trump campaign contributor, spoke next, echoing many of the same business concerns, and said, quote, "We can't have the inmates running the prison," end quote. And the word inmates, I can already see now, is starting to trend, and many people that we know, including Damian Woody and others, are reacting to it. And, Mike, in the story it says that Troy Vincent, who was a former NFL player, reacted strongly to that.
Any player
and you said
that.
Immediately that's going to be a problem.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be a problem. How could you not react strongly to that, to that wording of it? So I can see why players will be upset with that. And again, when you want to have a meeting that's an amicable meeting, which is a reason why I didn't think any mandates would come out of it, it doesn't mean there aren't going to be lines that come out of it that don't rub some people the wrong way, and that one will.
So let's ask you, Joey, as one who is a veteran of locker rooms, right? You were in there a long time in these kind of conversations. Now this story is out. So now the players on that team, some of whom probably feel very strongly about this, the cause for which they have knelt, et cetera, have seen that quote attributed to the man who owns the team, who signs their checks, and who is the leader of that franchise. What reaction would you expect that, and what, if any, fallout do you think we might see?
The quote is, well, the thought process is problematic, not necessarily just the quote. And I mean, there are a lot of times as a black person, you're like, we know that's how you feel, and then sometimes you say it. And so now I know when you say it, I know. Now we're on the same page. Now you've put it out here, and this is how you feel, so now we can move forward in honesty, really. And so when I see these kind of things and with the Trump situation, and I would hate to see it hijack the topic of what's really important. And I think Trump did that for a few weeks, and this has the same potential to do the same thing, so that the discussions that were hopefully going to help the real topic, which was, the injustices that happen to brown people in America, it is so easy to get sidetracked. And yes, I agree. This quote, this feeling is a problem. I hope that's not all that comes out of this meeting. And I think when something like that happens, it has the potential to become the bigger story than, okay, now what are we going to do to fix the real issues? And so as it is an issue, and I hope people address it as an issue, don't get sidetracked. Don't spend a month on this when there's more important things to talk about.
1,000% agree, because that's what happened to the original protest the players had. That has been lost. Almost the kneeling effect, I think, has been lost now on what is trying to be accomplished. So that's why I thought these meetings will be good, because let's get something concrete. Yeah. If it's just in the NFL cities with the players in the league working together, that's something concrete. Do it. So now don't get hung up on this, but that's why it's going to rub people the wrong way, because this isn't employer, our job thing. This is something different that they're all talking about. So it's something where they're working with together. This wasn't them meeting with, we're the employer, you're the employee, we're going to tell you what to do. This were two groups sitting down and saying, this is the issue that we have of why we're doing something. And the league saying, hey, okay, how can we all work together to help? So these are two sides trying to work together on the same level to do something in each city. And then you get an owner that says something like that now separates them again. And I think that's what the players are going to go, okay, here we go. Now we're separating again. We know we're the employee and you're the employer, but this was something that we were trying to get on the same level with, and that line is going to stick now in people's craw for it. And I agree with you. I hope you can get past it to still work for fundamentally what you're trying to accomplish with this.
Well, our understanding, and again, I totally agree with you. The issues are the issues, and they are more important, and they are going to meet again next week, and I think everyone hopes that good, constructive things will come out of that. But I do wonder, these are also things that have the potential to become divisive or problematic for teams. As we're reading through the rest of the story, after the owners finished, Troy Vincent stood up. He was offended by McNair's characterization of the players as inmates. Vincent said that in all his years of playing in the NFL, during which he said he had been called every name in the book, including the N-word, quote, he never felt like an inmate. McNair later pulled Vincent aside and apologized, saying that he felt horrible and that his words weren't meant to be taken literally, which Vincent appreciated. It is a commonly used expression.
It is. It absolutely is. And I'm glad McNair said something and tried to diffuse it, right away once he saw that he was offended.
The one thing I will say is that we saw that the Cowboys players, when Jerry Jones first made his comments about how no one here is going to kneel or they're not going to play, that some of the players apparently met with him, and I don't know that we know all the details of that. Would you expect something like that potentially to happen here? Do you think there'll be players who will want to have a word with Bob McNair at some point in order to feel comfortable about going forward, or would you guys expect something like that to happen here?
I would hope that Bob McNair would just squash it.
Yeah.
Just like he just did.
Just like he did.
Exactly.
Right.
Come out with a public statement, squash it. And hopefully the players move on quickly into the real topic. So when Trump made his statement and then the entire league is kneeling together and standing, I mean, what are you protesting at this point? Like,
exactly.
What are you upset about? And you say that Troy Vincent says, look, I've been called every name in the book. And so when Trump comes out and calls them SOBs, all of a sudden we're all offended. We've all been called that within the first 3 minutes of a game. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm thinking all these people now rally to protest against something that does not matter at all.
I'm agreeing.
I hope this is the same way. And bypass it and move on to the real.
And the SOB thing is just like, we can call each other that, but don't somebody outside the sport call us that.
As soon as you step out the locker room, someone's calling you that.
Just like the players, even though I'm with you, once the arm-locking, kneeling started, it wasn't even about the original protest anymore. It was about, it was about being told by somebody else that, you're disrespectful. Wait, you can't tell us that. And then when Jerry Jones said, you'll stand or you won't play, then it was players kind of going, wait a minute.
Yep.
It's almost not what you mean, it's what you're saying. Wait, you're not telling us what to do, which again brings us to we're losing sight of the original. So that I'm so with Joey on this is keep sight of that. Keep sight of Tuesday. It's not many days away of what you're trying to accomplish. McNair, as he said, used a term that's used all the time. He said he was sorry for doing it to Troy Vincent, and I'm glad he said that. So let's get past it. Let's not hang on that too much longer now. Let's get past it, and let's get these two sides working together to do something.
Okay, again, I really do recommend reading the entirety of the story. It's very detailed and very well researched, and you'll get a lot more context than we can do just sitting here talking about it on the radio. So let's move forward from that here for the moment. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, I'm relieved to have an offensive player in the room because I need a little counterbalance to all this defender stuff. So you got Kiko Alonso last night leveling Joe Flacco as he is sliding, albeit late, near a first down marker late in the second quarter of what turned into a total blowout last night. The Ravens beat the Dolphins 40-0. But Flacco is sliding. He slides late. Alonso hits him directly in the head, the side of the head. Flacco's helmet goes flying off. He's got a cut in his ear, so it's a terrible look. He comes up. He's obviously dazed. He later is, we're told that he has a concussion, and you can see it. It's one of those, we can see it in his eyes immediately, and he's got blood pouring out of his ear. So it's a terrible-looking play. So I'll just ask you, Joey, as a former offensive player, did you think that was a dirty hit by Kiko Alonso?
I didn't think it was dirty. I think it was right on the line of a penalty. Now, it is tough for me to make a transition into this new way of looking at football, I guess. And it's for guys that played back in an era where you could basically take someone's head off, and that's what your goal was on defense, and things weren't called like this. It is tough to make a transition into the way you look at the game today. Now, in slow motion, it looks awful. Yep. I mean, it just looks terrible. But when I was watching it live when it happened, and I didn't jump off the screen to me as being terribly dirty. There is a fine line between a quarterback sliding when he starts to slide and when the defender is committed with his body, with his motion, and a lot of people think you can just stop that. And even being an offensive guy, I realize that these things, and targeting is another issue in college football that I look at every single day. No one takes into account the speed of what is happening and the offensive guy's motion and what it causes a defensive guy to do. And so I didn't think it was dirty. I thought a penalty was warranted. I don't think he should be suspended, but he probably will be.
Yeah, I think in this game of today where they keep trying to protect the quarterback, and you can't really change many more rules to protect the quarterback. So maybe they're going to make the penalties even harsher to try and deter that. But even that said, I'll say again, everybody tried to make the Anthony Barr hit on Aaron Rodgers dirty because he got hurt, and it wasn't. Everybody then Carson Palmer's arm gets broke through a normal play. Yeah. It happens. In this play, there are rules against it. If you truly read the rules, Joe slid late. And it says when you slide late, you lose the protection that you normally get. Now, you still can't get hit in the head, and Kiko hit him in the head, so that's where the penalty comes into play. I get that, but I just wonder if the league – and I said this too, Joey – guys that are giving out these fines and discipline now are former players. So I said earlier, if in today's game they feel they need to suspend Kiko because of where we are in this world today, they're even going to feel kind of weird.
Yeah, kind of weird about it.
They're going to say, okay, we kind of have to do this now, but I almost feel like I have to shower after it because I don't think it deserves a suspension. And there are others. People have put out another play by Kiko Alonso hitting a Browns quarterback who was sliding as well. He was coming from the side that time. The quarterback didn't see him, and it was the exact same thing. That quarterback slid late. Kiko Alonso was already going for the tackle, and that quarterback was just starting to go down. You can't look at it by frame. You can't look at a still shot, and you can't look at it in slow motion and make an assessment. As I said, Joey, they knew where the first down was. Yep. Joe Flacco was assessing, can I get to the first down?
Trying to get an extra yard.
He decided at the last minute or too late, I can't get it, I better get down. And Kiko had already started the act of tackling, and it was a late slide to bad hit.
We're Mike and Mike, and we remind you can tune in for college football action tomorrow as Florida battles Georgia. Presented by Dr. Pepper. Coverage begins 2:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. And that's, of course, one of several really big games.
When I say bad hit, I meant that it injured Flacco and deserved the penalty. It was not a dirty hit in my mind at all.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, to the college here quickly, Florida, Georgia tomorrow, which is always a big game. Tomorrow it has enormous impact because Florida's having a down season. And to knock Georgia off the ranks of the unbeaten and a potential shot at a college football playoff would sort of make their season. And Georgia has everything in the world at stake. We are asked by our friends at AutoZone, Joey, to pick a player who may be in the zone. Get in the zone with AutoZone. Who would you say is the most important player in the Florida-Georgia game tomorrow?
Jake Fromm, the quarterback from Georgia. He still needs to develop, and these are the kind of games against a Florida team that he has to play big in and become a person that could potentially carry this team if he had to moving forward, because they will play Auburn, they will play possibly Alabama in the championship, and your quarterback's going to have to make plays.
As far as the other the big games, College Game Day going to Ohio State for the Ohio State-Penn State game, Penn State given a 70 by our FPI, a 72% chance to win that game. Haven't seen it. They were off last week. They haven't played a tough schedule at this point. I think a lot of us still aren't sure what Ohio State is at this point. How do you see that?
If this game was being played anywhere but Columbus, Ohio, I would be thinking Penn State. And what they did Saturday night against Michigan, that was an NFL-level game plan on the offensive side. It was fun to watch. Like, go back and watch it again and again. It was that level, and what they were able to do from the beginning of their season to what they gave Michigan Saturday night. So if Joe Moorhead's able to replicate that kind of offensive game plan, they will be tough to stop.
My assessment, and I'll include Notre Dame, North Carolina State in this, on both teams, Notre Dame and Ohio State, is I don't know what to expect from them if they have to throw themselves back into a game. J.T. Barrett, I don't think is a very good throwing quarterback, and we've seen that. Mm-hmm. And with Brandon Wimbush, it's his first year starting, and he hasn't been really asked to throw his team back into a game, except a bit against Georgia. Now, that was his second start ever. Georgia slowed down the running game. Josh Adams only had 53 yards. They only had 56 as a team. And Brandon Wimbush was 19 of 39 in that game, no touchdown. So if that's my concern for both Ohio State and Notre Dame, is if they have to throw themselves back into a game, how difficult that can be.
The problem for Notre Dame and Wimbush is the plays are there. And so when you watch USC, he had wide open receivers downfield, and he delivered the ball out of bounds. I used to always tell my quarterbacks, I've seen this 1,000 times, don't try to be perfect with it in these situations. Don't try to see if you can throw it 70 yards. See if you can throw it early, and see if you can just leave it in the field. Just give me a chance. Try to outthrow me, but try to leave it on the field and give me a chance. And as I'm watching Wimbush, some of these balls are floating out of bounds. He did throw 2 touchdowns last game, which are huge moving
couple of
forward.
Nice throws. When he hits them, he hits them.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Couple nice throws, and then the other one sails. So if he could just hit a couple more, he didn't have to pass this team to a win because they run it so well. All you have to do is hit a couple more, and it helps out the run game, and it helps his confidence.
Let me ask you this. I want to go back to the Ohio State Penn State game for a minute, because Ohio State loses to Oklahoma, and all I'm hearing from anyone is J.T. Barrett has never improved as a passer. He's never become the thrower of the football that we thought he should be. Now they've won 5 straight games against markedly lower-level competition, and we're talking about them, and they're right back up to number 6 in the country or whatever it is. Are you confident that as they step up in class this weekend, that their offense is ready to hold up its end?
No. I wouldn't say I'm confident that their offense is ready to hold up its end. I am confident that this offense has gotten better since Oklahoma. And you're right. They hadn't really played anybody, and I've joked that we could gather up the guys in this room and we could probably score some points against Nebraska and UNLV and those defenses that they've played. But when you look at timing type of things with J.T. Barrett and his receivers, I thought early in the season he looked like a quarterback that just wasn't sure where his receiver was going to be. If his receiver was going to break his outcut at 10 yards or 12 yards or 14 yards or come across the field, and there were some accuracy issues. Now, those things I do believe you can improve on regardless of who you're playing. I think you can get on the same page with a receiver regardless of who's out there playing defense. I've seen improvement there. I've seen improvement in accuracy. Now, will Ohio State and the coaching staff, the offensive coaching staff, come into this game and call the same plays they called against Maryland or against Nebraska or against UNLV? We've seen before where they're not as willing to be open-minded when it comes to J.T. Barrett. You go back there and win this game for us. So we will see that again play out Saturday.
So let me ask you both as we let Joey go here, and we have Craig Bijou coming up in a moment. The first college football playoff rankings will come out next week. We obviously, this weekend's games will have an enormous impact on that. But if all the unbeaten teams win, there are 6 unbeatens playing games this weekend, whatever it is. If all those teams win, all these big games, what will the first 4 be next week? What will the order be? It's tough to say, obviously, because the margins of some of these games might impact that. But I just wrote down what I think it'll be.
Well, I mean, I think
what do you think it'll be?
Go ahead, Joey.
I think the AP is correct, and I was just jotting down some. Sure. I was scribbling mine before I even looked over at the list, and I believe it would be Alabama, Penn State, Georgia, and TCU. And I guess the only question mark there is Alabama has looked great, but resume-wise, there's no big wins on their resume. But I still believe they'll be number 1.
I think that's the 4 as well, and I think the team that could be sitting in the best position going forward with the record that they have until they get to the Big Ten championship game, and I think they'll get there, is Wisconsin.
Yeah, but their problem, it's great to get there, but their problem then becomes if these teams stay on track, and then let's just say Penn State gets beat by Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game, or Ohio State, and Notre Dame is sitting out there. Notre Dame wins their schedule. I think that Wisconsin's a sitting duck. They would
they'd be undefeated, though. I'm saying if they were undefeated.
Well, yes, the problem is they would be undefeated with 1 ranked win on their schedule. Just 1.
It's true.
Because
that'd be something.
Because Michigan is at this stage falling off.
Right.
And if anybody's being hurt right now by Michigan struggling, it's Wisconsin, because they'll come through the season with no ranked wins.
I'll say this: I find it almost impossible to imagine they would leave an unbeaten Big Ten champion out. I agree with every word you're saying. I totally get that their quality of their wins will not compare to a lot of the one-loss teams. But, boy, if they left an unbeaten Big Ten champion out of the Final
the
Four.
committee has had some interesting things.
It is very possible. And I wouldn't even be surprised if, say, Alabama, Georgia go to the SEC championship game and it is close. I would not be surprised to see Georgia losing a close game or Alabama losing a close game, both teams get in over an unbeaten Wisconsin.
That would be something else.
Yeah.
All right, Joey Galloway, fantastic work.
Thanks,
we'll see
Joey.
him all over TV all weekend. I'll see you on the golf course next Friday.
Oh, yeah.
I'm told plans are being made.
If you can get Booger out there, I'll go.
Booger out. Don't you worry. I got Booger out there. Get your thermals ready to go. We're going to play.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
The Astros were in the World Series only once before. That was 2005, and this man was the star of the team, the Hall of Famer. Craig Biggio joins us this morning with the Astros back on the baseball big stage. Craig, good morning and welcome. Thanks very much for doing this. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, boys. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
We're doing great, and obviously it's been great fun, and I know how close you are to this and how much you're enjoying it. And let's start immediately with the ballpark. The Astros are 6-0 at home in the playoffs this year. They've outscored opponents 31-7. For the layperson, frankly, for anybody, why are they so good in this ballpark?
Well, I mean, there's always something to be said about having your own home crowd on your side and having the last at bat. I think that's always kind of a huge thing that kind of sometimes goes unnoticed a little bit. But when you're sleeping in your own bed, you're doing your daily routine. When you're at home, it's you like it. It's better. And then obviously, the fan base here has been the people here have been through so much this year. Harvey. And everybody that went through it, and then for us to be able to playing a home game, having a home series now and playing at home, our fans. I mean, I know you guys are a little bit older, some of our guys are a little bit younger, but when you go back to the days with the Metrodome and the Yankees and the Twins and the Twins and the Braves or whatever, you remember how loud it was and the decibel level. The place, the last two games that we had. This place is rocking, just like it was in 2005. So they're comfortable. They know it. They know their park, and they know everything about it. So we'll see. Hopefully, the trend continues.
Craig, we know in all sports the regular season is different than the preseason. The postseason is different than the regular season. Is the World Series different than the postseason? If so, how from a player's perspective?
Well, from a player's perspective, is that when this thing is all said and done. Everybody on both sides are going to crash, and they're going to sleep probably for a long time. But for right now, once you start getting into the postseason, Mike, it's just you're grinding, you're focused. Once you get all your tickets and everything handled, and your wife and your family's all taken care of. I mean, it's every pitch, it's every play. It's you're into the game with some serious intent, and you definitely watch the game a little bit differently. Once you're in the postseason as a player compared to once from the regular season. Mike
and Craig Biggio, who is with us, the star of the Astros, who I believe will be the American League's most valuable player this year, is Jose Altuve. And he has said that you give him, I want to read the quote correctly, give him the energy that he sometimes needs. What does he mean by that? How would you describe the relationship you guys have built and the conversations you have with him?
Well, I thought, he's a great kid, and he's a humble kid, and you just think about his story, and I remember, Jose and I were talking on the backfield somewhere, I don't even know what it was, 5 or 6 years ago, in the minor league field discussing base runner, and he's always a kid that he's always enthusiastic, he's always moving, he's just a good person, he's a good kid, and it's been a lot of fun to get to know him over the last 5 or 6 years and get to watch him evolve from the player that he was in the minor leagues to the player that he's become now. I mean, it's crazy. You look at his numbers. He's got, our organization only had one guy before to have 200 hit season. He's got 4 in a row. He's got 3 batting titles. He plays incredible defense, and we're not where we're at right now without him. And my relationship with him is just a genuine relationship. He's a good guy, and he's humble, and he's a lot of fun to be around. And so getting to know him over this last 6 years has been a treat.
You were a guy who you were listed here. I just looked it up here at 5'11". You didn't always look like the biggest guy out there on the field, but for the littlest guy, say that. Are you a legit 5'11"?
No, not at all. I think I was 5'10" and a half.
Okay.
I think it's like anybody's goalie will tell you the same thing.
Yep.
I mean, if you're 300, you're more like 295, right? Or you're always gonna. If you're 5'10" and a half, you're 5'11". I mean, they used to say Baggy was 6 foot. He was 5'11". So. You're always stretching the tape a little bit.
Yep. Fair enough. Now, so I don't know exactly how tall Jose Altuve actually is. He's listed at, what is he? I don't even know, like 5'6" or something like that. How about a guy to be doing what he does at his size? I mean, could you put that into perspective for people? Because in a sport that is increasingly populated by bigger and stronger guys, he looks even smaller. How would you put into context what he does at his size?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, especially in a game. I'm involved with the draft. I'm involved with, player development and evaluating at times. And when you look at it, you're looking for the guy that's 6'1", 6'2", the guy that can run well, throws well. And, people get labeled in this game. And for what he's doing for a guy that his size and stature, he may be 5'6", but he plays like he's 6'6". And I tell you what, man, he's a dynamic person. And I think, you one of the most ultimate compliments you can get the other day when we were in L.A., Hank Aaron, one of the greatest players of all time, said that he would pay a ticket to come watch him play. I don't think you can get a better compliment than that.
Talking to Craig Biggio, became the first player to represent the Astros in the Hall of Fame in 2015. And as you said, you're still involved, obviously, with decisions and things that go on there. You're a guy that hit 668 doubles in your career, most all-time among right-handed hitters. How do you now look at the game of today, especially when you're as involved as you are, when we had a record for strikeouts and a record for home runs hit? It certainly seems like the game is changing.
Well, the game is changing. The thought process changed a little bit. I mean, we used to swing down on the ball a lot, and now guys are swinging up in the ball. And, it's just a process of, as the game evolves, things change, thinking changes a little bit. But you still got to, hit the ball. You still got to catch the ball. And, strikeouts are up, home runs are up. I think sometimes the equipment is a little bit better than it was back in the day as far as guys are getting lighter bats, stronger, better wood, and balls are going, they're going a long way again. So, hey, the game is the game, and but when it's all said and done, it's the little things that win ball games. Like the other night, George Springer's trying to get the guy over with less than 2 outs, and he hits a 2-run homer. You know what I mean? He's still playing the game. It's the game within the game, but it's watching the game itself. It is what it is.
Do you think the ball is any different? I've heard a lot of people speculating that the ball. People will use the word juiced. I mean, I don't think that you have to use that word necessarily. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Do you think the ball is at all different?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's round, it's hard, and I don't know. I can't. These guys could probably test them or check them, whatever. But the ball is the ball. So I mean, I think that the players are strong. I mean, equipment is good. Parks are maybe a little bit smaller, so you have a tendency of balls flying out a little bit more than they normally do. But, I'm not getting into all that. It's just like a conspiracy theory about all this different stuff. It's just I know there's probably a little bit difference between the minor leagues and the big. Overall, the ball is the baseball.
So with that, there's going to be a guy with the baseball in his hand tonight to start the game. A guy who's raised $37 million to help the area in Houston, and that's J.J. Watt, out for the season because of the knee injury. He's going to throw out the first pitch. Mm-hmm. So the real question is, what kind of pitch you expect from him?
Knowing J.J., it's probably going to be as hard. He's started out before, and, I couldn't think of a better guy for what he did for the city. I mean, I mentioned it earlier when we got on the air. I mean, for what everybody went through here with Harvey was so devastating. And, JJ is such a huge icon here in the city. He's beloved, and obviously he's had a horrific injury. But he started off trying to raise, $200 million or $250,000 is what he wanted to raise, and $37 million later. I mean, how incredible is that? So this stadium, with him walking out there, is going to be, it's going to be rocking. And for knowing JJ, it's going to be firm if he can get it there. I don't know if he's going to be in a wheelchair. I don't know what his leg situation is, whatever. But it's the fans are going to be pumped to see him.
Yeah, $200,000 goal to $37 million is just an incredible job out of him. Craig, we appreciate the time this morning. Enjoy the experience tonight.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Hey, how about those Notre Damers, Mike?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, maybe we'll meet in the parking lot again.
Got to get a little plug for the Golden Domers.
That's it.
Thank you, Craig. Craig Biggio, repping both of his teams now. He's repping Notre Dame and he's repping the Astros, and he's excited for both.
When Notre Dame played in the title game in 2012, I was walking into the stadium. He was out there playing, throwing a football around with his kids in the parking lot. It was great.
Did you think he was 5'11"?
No, he's not 5'11".
I mean, I watched Craig Biggio's entire career. He was a tremendous player. He was that guy that if you weren't like the biggest, strongest, most talented guy, you wanted to be, because his uniform is always dirty and he's diving around to make plays. He's not 5'11".
You never.
In no way he's 5'11".
That's why he said that to me.
He said he's 5'10" and a half.
You never believe the height. Never. Well, even if he's not that, you never believe the height. The height you see in a program for any sport is never right.
Okay. I'm going to leave it at that because I like him a lot, but I don't think he's nearly that big.
You think he's under 5'10"?
I'd like to see him measured right now.
The best of Mike and Mike.
The Astros were in the World Series only once before. That was 2005, and this man was the star of the team, the Hall of Famer. Craig Biggio joins us this morning with the Astros back on the baseball big stage. Craig, good morning and welcome. Thanks very much for doing this. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, boys. How you guys doing?
Doing well.
We're doing great, and obviously it's been great fun, and I know how close you are to this and how much you're enjoying it. And let's start immediately with the ballpark. The Astros are 6-0 at home in the playoffs this year. They've outscored opponents 31-7. For the layperson, frankly, for anybody, why are they so good in this ballpark?
Well, I mean, there's always something to be said about having your own home crowd on your side and having the last at bat. I think that's always kind of a huge thing that kind of sometimes goes unnoticed a little bit. But when you're sleeping in your own bed, you're doing your daily routine. When you're at home, it's you like it. It's better. And then obviously, the fan base here has been the people here have been through so much this year. Harvey. And everybody that went through it, and then for us to be able to playing a home game, having a home series now and playing at home, our fans. I know you guys are a little bit older. Some of our guys are a little bit younger, but when you go back to the days with the Metrodome and the Yankees and the Twins and the Twins and the Braves or whatever, you remember how loud it was and the decibel level. The place, the last two games that we had. This place is rocking, just like it was in 2005. So they're comfortable. They know it. They know their park, and they know everything about it. So we'll see. Hopefully, the trend continues.
Craig, we know in all sports the regular season is different than the preseason. The postseason is different than the regular season. Is the World Series different than the postseason? If so, how from a player's perspective?
Well, from a player's perspective, is that when this thing is all said and done. Everybody on both sides are going to crash, and they're going to sleep probably for a long time. But for right now, once you start getting into the postseason, Mike, it's just you're grinding, you're focused. Once you get all your tickets and everything handled, and your wife and your family's all taken care of. I mean, it's every pitch, it's every play. It's you're into the game with some serious intent, and you definitely watch the game a little bit differently. Once you're in the postseason as a player compared to once from the regular season. Mike
and Craig Biggio, who is with us, the star of the Astros, who I believe will be the American League's most valuable player this year, is Jose Altuve. And he has said that you give him, I want to read the quote correctly, give him the energy that he sometimes needs. What does he mean by that? How would you describe the relationship you guys have built and the conversations you have with him?
Well, I thought, he's a great kid, and he's a humble kid, and you just think about his story, and I remember, Jose and I were talking on the backfield somewhere, I don't even know what it was, 5 or 6 years ago, in the minor league field discussing base runner, and he's always a kid that he's always enthusiastic, he's always moved, he's just a good person, he's a good kid, and it's been a lot of fun to get to know him over the last 5 or 6 years and get to watch him evolve from the player that he was in the minor leagues to the player that he's become now. I mean, It's crazy. You look at his numbers. He's got, our organization only had one guy before to have 200-hit season. He's got 4 in a row. He's got 3 batting titles. He plays incredible defense, and we're not where we're at right now without him. And my relationship with him is just a genuine relationship. He's a good guy, and he's humble, and he's a lot of fun to be around. And so getting to know him over this last 6 years has been a treat.
You were a guy who you were listed here. I just looked it up here at 5'11". You didn't always look like the biggest guy out there on the field, but for the littlest guy, say that. Are you a legit 5'11"?
No, not at all. I think I was 5'10" and a half. I think it's like anybody's goalie will tell you the same thing. Yep. I mean, if it's if you're 300, you're more like 295, right? Or you're always gonna. If you're 5'10" and a half, you're 5'11". I mean, they used to say Baggy was 6 foot. He was 5'11". So. You're always stretching the tape a little bit.
Yep. Fair enough. Now, so I don't know exactly how tall Jose Altuve actually is. He's listed at, what is he? I don't even know, like 5'6" or something like that. How about a guy to be doing what he does at his size? I mean, could you put that into perspective for people? Because in a sport that is increasingly populated by bigger and stronger guys, he looks even smaller. How would you put into context what he does at his size?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, especially in a game. I'm involved with the draft. I'm involved with, player development and evaluating at times. And when you look at it, you're looking for the guy that's 6'1", 6'2", the guy that can run well, throws well. And, people get labeled in this game. And for what he's doing for a guy that his size and stature, he may be 5'6", but he plays like he's 6'6". And I tell you what, man, he's a dynamic person. I think, you one of the most ultimate compliments you can get the other day when we were in L.A., Hank Aaron, one of the greatest players of all time, said that he would pay a ticket to come watch him play. I don't think you can get a better compliment than that.
Talking to Craig Biggio, became the first player to represent the Astros in the Hall of Fame in 2015. And as you said, you're still involved, obviously, with decisions and things that go on there. You're a guy that hit 668 doubles in your career, most all-time among right-handed hitters. How do you now look at the game of today, especially when you're as involved as you are, when we had a record for strikeouts and a record for home runs hit? It certainly seems like the game is changing.
Well, the game is changing. The thought process changed a little bit. I mean, we used to swing down on the ball a lot, and now guys are swinging up in the ball. And, it's just a process of, as the game evolves, things change, thinking changes a little bit. But you still got to, hit the ball. You still got to catch the ball. And, strikeouts are up, home runs are up. I think sometimes the equipment is a little bit better than it was back in the day as far as guys are getting lighter bats, stronger, better wood, and balls are going, they're going a long way again. So, hey, the game is the game. And but when it's all said and done, it's the little things that win ball games. Like the other night, George Springer's trying to get the guy over with less than 2 outs, and he hits a 2-run homer. You know what I mean? He's still playing the game. It's the game within the game. But it's, watching the game itself, it is what it is.
Do you think the ball is any different? I've heard a lot of people speculating that the ball, people will use the word juiced. I mean, I don't think that you have to use that word necessarily. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Do you think the ball is at all different?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's round, it's hard, and I don't know. I can't. These guys could probably test them or check them, whatever. But the ball is the ball. So I think that the players are strong. Equipment is good. Parks are maybe a little bit smaller, so you have a tendency of balls flying out a little bit more than they normally do. But I'm not getting into all that. It's just like a conspiracy theory about all this different stuff. It's just I know there's probably a little bit difference between the minor leagues and the big. Overall, the ball is the baseball.
So with that, there's going to be a guy with the baseball in his hand tonight to start the game. A guy who's raised $37 million to help the area in Houston, and that's J.J. Watt, out for the season because of the knee injury. He's going to throw out the first pitch. Mm-hmm. So the real question is, what kind of pitch you expect from him?
Knowing J.J., it's probably going to be as hard. He started out before, and, I couldn't think of a better guy for what he did for the city. I mean, I mentioned it earlier when we got on the air. I mean, for what everybody went through here with Harvey was so devastating. And, JJ is such a huge icon here in the city. He's beloved, and obviously he's had a horrific injury. But he started off trying to raise, $200 million or $250,000 is what he wanted to raise, and $37 million later. I mean, how incredible is that? So this stadium, with him walking out there is going to be it's going to be rocking. And for knowing JJ, it's going to be firm if he can get it there. I don't know if he's going to be in a wheelchair. I don't know what his leg situation is, whatever. But it's the fans are going to be pumped to see him.
Yeah, $200,000 goal to $37 million is just an incredible job out of him. Craig, we appreciate the time this morning. Enjoy the experience tonight.
Good luck. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Hey, how about those Notre Damers, Mike?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, maybe we'll meet in the parking lot again.
Got to get a little plug for the Golden Domers.
That's it.
Thank you, Craig. Craig Biggio, repping both of his teams now. He's repping Notre Dame and he's repping the Astros, and he's excited for both.
When Notre Dame played in the title game in 2012, I was walking into the stadium. He was out there playing, throwing a football around with his kids in the parking lot. It was great.
Did you think he was 5'11"?
No, he's not 5'11".
I mean, I watched Craig Biggio's entire career. He was a tremendous player. A tremendous player. He was that guy that if you weren't like the biggest, strongest, most talented guy, you wanted to be because his uniform is always dirty and he's diving around to make plays. He's not 5'11".
You never.
In no way he's 5'11".
That's why he said that to me. You never.
He said he's 5'10" and a half.
You never believe the height. Never. Well, even if he's not that, you never believe the height. The height you see in a program for any sport is never right.
Okay. I'm going to leave it at that because I like him a lot, but I don't think he's nearly that big.
You think he's under 5'10"?
I'd like to see him measured right now.